Star Wars is my favorite fantasy world of all time. Some of my favorite media of all time. I remember as early as I can remember watching the VHS original trilogy that my parents had over and over and over. I wore it out. It was just magical to me. I remember seeing The Phantom Menace in the theater when it first came out, and I was Darth Maul for months after that. I saw the other ones in theater as well. I read a lot of the books, played a lot of the video games growing up. I got disconnected from it for a while, and then really got back into it with the Clone Wars TV show, and then Rebels after that. And I have really enjoyed a lot of the Disney Star Wars content. It's not been perfect. I have my critiques of all of it, but I don't really consider myself a critic of media or of Star Wars. I'm just an enjoyer, and I have my gripes here and there with some stuff. But overall, some of the Disney stuff has been some of my favorite Star Wars content. And I think that they are telling great stories within this universe and expanding on the universe. And I think that's awesome. Some people, not so much. Some people are very, very angry that Disney took over Star Wars and think that they have been tanking it ever since, and that they have been trying to push agendas in it. And some of those people have become incredibly toxic. And that has always been the case. There's always been toxic Star Wars fans, and I think that's really unfortunate. In a way, though, I kind of understand. Like, if the Daily Wire, for instance, had bought Star Wars and was like turning out what I thought to be like terrible stories and pushing like a conservative right-wing agenda, I would be really upset. But after a while, I would probably move on. I would probably stop watching it. I would stop complaining about it, and I would realize that they're never going to take my view into consideration. They're never going to pander towards me. And that's something I don't understand about the toxic Star Wars fan base, the toxic side of it. While I don't think that Disney is like ideologically captured or centered as something like the Daily Wire, they are definitely more, diverse, left-leaning. But with the Acolyte dropping last month, and it looks like it is doing incredibly well as far as views go, second only to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, it seems like a lot of people are liking it. So at some point, the Disney franchise has never been more popular. They are making tons of money off of it. The go woke, go broke thing is not applying here. So like at some point, you have to realize, hey, they're never going to pander to me. So maybe it's time to move on. There is one creator on the internet who is probably the biggest Star Wars creator, Star Wars Theory. And I used to really like his videos a lot. It did a lot of like obscure explanations of Star Wars lore, of a lot of the Legends content. And it was really good. But at some point he went more towards, as we're getting more content, like analyzing and trying to dissect storylines and stuff like that, and he has not been very good at it. And I don't really know where he sits on this continuum of like outrage farming, of grifting. I don't know if he's there yet, but he does have a lot of really, really bad takes on media literacy and on the stuff that's come out from Disney. And while I don't think that he is necessarily a part of the toxic side of the fandom, I think that a lot of his ideas are trickling down into that and being used to justify the toxicity. And so he just put out a 45-minute video going through Leslye Headland's recent interview, where she talks a lot about the Acolyte and explains a lot of things. And I have heard it is really full of misinformation, disinformation, and like misunderstanding on Star Wars Theory's part. I want to go into it blind and react to it. Again, I love Star Wars. I don't consider myself a lore master. I also don't consider myself a critic. But there is so many criticisms that are being made on the Acolyte and on Star Wars in general that just numb my brain. They don't make any sense. They are not like consistent with how they critique George Lucas's Star Wars. And so I may get a little frustrated throughout this, but I wanted to react to it, see what he has to say, how he interprets everything, see what Leslye Headland has to say. As far as the Acolyte goes, I have really enjoyed it so far. It's second only to Andor for me. Things I like about it, it feels very grounded. It feels like a story being told in the Star Wars universe, a good story, versus a Star Wars show, if that makes sense. Like the Book of Boba Fett felt very much like a Star Wars show, almost like in line with like Rebels or the Clone Wars. And it felt like there was like this tension between being live action and being gritty and like a hard story, but also like being very cartoonish and like Marvelish. And I think that really didn't do the show any favors. The Acolyte, though, seems very grounded as a show. I like the dialogue. I like the mystery. I like the choreography. That is a really big thing for me. Really poor choreography just like takes me out of it. I like the show. I enjoy it. I do have critiques here and there, but I enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, that is totally fine. And if you have critiques of it, that is totally fine. A lot of the critiques, though, are really fucking dumb. And so I feel like we're going to get a lot of those in this video. So let's get through it. Let's start it.
All right, what's up, everybody? We have a very long video ahead of us, and this is going to be going over the full interview with Leslye Headland by the Nerdist.com, and they are doing a lot of what seems like explaining of the story, because the story does a piss poor job of actually explaining what's going on, where now she has to come into these interviews and answer questions, backtrack on a lot of things, such as the vergence that was created. She's saying, no, that's not like an Anakin vergence. We'll get
So one thing I find interesting right off the bat is that there's like two different sects of critiques going on, like on TikTok right now. One is this idea that like the story just doesn't make sense, and like nothing there are like the plot line doesn't make sense, and they're not like telegraphing things properly. And then there's like another side that's saying that like they're just spoon feeding it to us, and it's so simplistic, and like they're telegraphing everything. I wish they would pick a talking point. Neither fully makes sense. I think that they're doing a fine job of having a good balance between foreshadowing and telegraphing and mystery and character development. I think it's been pretty good.
Get into it. So it's a long interview. Sit back, relax, crack open whatever, and let's enjoy this thing. And always, if you like the Acolyte, good for you. If you don't like the Acolyte, good for you. We're here to talk about it. So, theorysabers.com, grab yourself a saber, and let's begin. From a powerful Force vergence and a coven of witches experimenting with immense power to a possessed Wookiee and deadly Jedi mistakes, the Acolyte's 7th episode had a lot to dig into, and that's exactly what we did with showrunner Leslye Headland. Nerdist went deep on everything that happened. Oh, this is just for episode 7. Okay. This is a lot of damage control, I think. Nerdist went deep on everything that happened during Choice and what it all meant. That includes how May and OSHA's very existence is both similar and different from Anakin's, how Soul's story reflects Qui-Gon's, and we also got some big clues. Yeah, just copy-paste. At what point in the creative process of The Acolyte did a vergence become such an important part of the story? Leslye says, when we crafted the storyline of this sort of David O. Russell's Three Kings version of Jedi being stuck on this planet, I mean the Phantom Menace, pretty much. Once we cracked that as a plot point where a lot of other things were going to come from it, it felt like the North Star for them had to be something incredibly important. It couldn't just be that they were on a planet and on a routine mission. It had to be something that was arduous, a little boring, but ultimately had an endpoint that would establish stakes for any Jedi that came in contact with a vergence. Like the one that wasn't supposed to happen for thousands of years that Qui-Gon Jinn found. On Tatooine, where 2 Jedi, I guess once you put Anakin in the mix, 3 Jedi, because got more midichlorians than all of them, were trying to find, it literally just copy-paste, dude. Seriously? Like,
so the vergence of the Force is... Anakin is a vergence of the Force. It's basically like a concentration of Force. And we know that she goes on to say that the twins are not a vergence, but the vergence does play into how they were created. But like the cave on Dagobah is a vergence. The Jedi Temple on Ilum is a vergence. Malachor is like a dark side vergence. Dathomir, the whole planet, is like a vergence of the Force. And basically it's just like a large concentration of the Force where It's easier for force sensitive people to tap into the force and use it, and their powers are, or their connection with it is more powerful, and more things can be done with it. And so, the idea that Anakin is supposed to be the only vergence of the Force in like 1,000 years, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. There's plenty of vergences all throughout the galaxy, and one developed on this planet Brindok. There was the hyperspace disaster that basically destroyed this planet and millions of people throughout the galaxy. It destroyed planets, but it rendered Brindok uninhabitable. And for whatever reason, they developed a force vergence on Brindok somewhere. That's what they are looking for. That brought life back to the planet. And that is partly why the witches came to Brindok as a hiding place. It's very uninhabited. It's a force vergence, and they can practice the force and have a stronger connection with it there. I don't know what anybody's deal with that would be.
Like, what creativity is even here? Once we broke episode 3 and 7, we decided that Brindok had to be a location of a vergence for a couple different reasons. One, for the motivation of the Jedi in terms of their mission and why they're on Brindok in the first place. We also felt it was very important the witches had found that planet because their power alone would not match an outside threat. What?
I was going to let OSHA go.
They would need to have the augmentation or the amplifications of a vergence. Wait, so the planet has like a essential force nexus that amplifies their powers? So
yeah, that's what oh my god. Like, how can it be that you explain Star Wars lore and theory for a living for years and you don't know what that is? That's like it's a mind blower for you? What the fuck? And it's just like, it's obvious that he's biased, right? And it's okay to be biased, but it's like he's going into this looking for things to hate. And I think that like, why is that fun for anybody? It feels like that's what he thinks that his audience wants, or that's what they're showing them that he wants, and that's what's getting him views, and like he just wants to keep playing into that.
They're like Superman on planet Earth. So if you take them off the planet, they're just like regular women? Are you serious?
Jody, can you tell us about your character? So my character, you know, she's a powerful leader. Yes.
We did not want the witches to just automatically be as powerful as the Jedi. Okay, so it's like Splinter of the Mind's Eye, where there's this crystal that Vader grabs. And this was actually supposed to be, I believe, episode 5, where he grabs the crystal and it like magnifies your force powers tenfold. So essentially she's just taken that idea, she's put it into this whole show, and the witches are actually literally regular people who are probably extremely weak, yet this place amplifies their force powers. So if that's the case, then shouldn't the Jedi, who have real force powers on any planet they go to because they call upon the force, have like Superman levels of power? Be like literally Super Saiyan gods? Like shouldn't they have like blue hair at this point and like blue aura? It doesn't really make much sense, I don't.
Like, has he never watched Star Wars? So Grogu in The Mandalorian, where he I can't remember what season it's in, but when they meet Boba Fett and he sits on that stone, that was a force vergence there. And it caused him to be able to meditate and reach out and like communicate and have a force field around him. Yes, it makes you more powerful. It made the Night Sisters on Dathomir very powerful because there was a force vergence there. I can't remember where it was that Yoda went when he had his, like, learned how to become a Force Ghost. But yeah, like, that was a very strong place where he was able to commune with the wills and learn that. Like, it's a very common theme in Star Wars. It's something that happens a lot. Like, I don't know why we're like, these force-sensitive people go to the Force Vergence and they're extra strong, and then when they leave, they're not as strong. Like, what? It's so stupid.
think. The witches needed to feel like a nomadic community that had finally found a place that would not only give them shelter and protection, but would also grant them more and more power and control over their ability. Okay, so the Night Sisters would just like literally laugh at them. My backstory to the Witches of Brendok and where they are is that Torben mentions it's an old mining company. So I sort of imagine that it's a little bit like John Carpenter's The Thing, right? There are all these miners there. They were drilling. They found something and then everybody was gone. And the next thing you know, 50, 60, 100 years later, this coven moves in. A couple years after that, the Jedi start to move there. It's almost like a magnet that's pulling these characters towards it. If it was a magnet that's pulling characters towards it, then the Sith would have already come to this planet so freaking long ago.
This story is about the Sith and like... She's already said that it's going to play into Plagueis. I don't know what you want me to tell you. This planet, Brendok, is in the Outer Rim. It's like very far out. It's very desolate. People thought that it was dead. Like, people aren't just like chilling on it to, you know, coming and going, seeing what's going on there. Yeah, for all we know, the Sith were there. And they were a part of the creation of the twins, or something to that effect.
And Plagueis, Tenebris, Venomous, they all would have been intrigued by this, and any other sort of dark side user. So it wouldn't have been left alone for that long. Yoda.
Yeah, the whole like insinuation is that Plagueis, Tenebris, they probably are involved here. They probably are here. In the Ascension ceremony, you can see in the background there's like two hooded figures that are present for that are kind of separate away from the rest of the coven. And the theory right now is that could be Chimere, could be Plagueis, could be Tenebris, Venomous, who we don't know. But like it's just obvious that the Sith are a part of this. So yeah, that's probably in part why they're there.
Would have also investigated this planet. He wouldn't have sent these like random Jedi to this place. It would have been something that would have been highly discussed with the Jedi High Council, and they would have all gone there and investigated. A lot of different narratives.
That's not true. The Jedi High Council, like, until they were like in all out war, did not really go out and do much. They sent Jedi Knights and Jedi Masters. It was just like they didn't even know there was like a vergence of the Force there. They just knew that, hey, this planet was alive again, and they sent out scientists, Jedi, you know, to just go out and report like, hey, what's going on here? And you know, probably at some point they would have found the vergence, and then maybe, you know, so some people from the council would come, but like, no, like you're not sending council members out to like random ass planets in the Outer Rim just to like take some samples, you know?
Narrative reasons to put it there as opposed to after the fact of, oh, also let's explore this cool aspect of the Star Wars vocabulary. A vergence can hide Force-sensitive people. Is that the reason that the Coven chose that planet? I ask because I want to know what came first. They found the planet, they moved there, and then decided to create the girls. Or they moved to Brendok specifically to create the girls. It's a really good question. It's also a backwards question because we haven't confirmed that the witches created them. Wow, the level of backtracking is insane. She just said that they haven't confirmed that the witches created them. It literally says in the show, in episode 7, that they were created. Like, one of the things Soul says is like, how were the bro, does she not even like know her own show? Literally, Soul says, how were the girls created? And the witch gets all pissed and essentially looks into the future and says Anakin is going to come and destroy everybody. She literally gets a glimpse of Order 66, something Yoda nobody else could ever do.
So something that's been established in the show is that we have a lot of unreliable narrators. We see things through the Jedi's point of view, we see things through the Coven's point of view, and we see things through May and OSHA's point of view, and none of them are fully the truth. This is how storytelling works. I don't know, like, obviously they were created, and her not like confirming is just like, we're gonna leave that to what's gonna happen in this show. It seems obvious that they were created, but maybe it was really the Sith who were primarily responsible for that. Maybe the witches did create them, and she just wants that to be part of the reveal of what really happened. But the show's not over, and so like it's just silly to bring that up as a point.
The time has come. Execute order.
But I guess it's, the power of the planet that's giving these otherwise weak, normal humans abilities that even Jedi Master...
I don't know where he's getting that they're like weak, normal humans. They're probably have like diverse levels of force sensitivity, just like the Jedi. They are they could be Jedi, some of them. Like, it's just no different than the Night Sisters. The Dathomir was a divergence in the Force. They were very powerful there. And then Asajj Ventress was a Night Sister, and then she also became a trained assassin for Count Dooku, a dark side user, and she was still powerful in the Force outside of Dathomir.
Grandmaster Yoda doesn't have. You haven't confirmed that the witches created them. Bro, you literally confirmed in like several episodes that this was confirmed, it's literally alluded to. It's as much of an illusion.
I don't know what to tell him. Like, it's just clear that we have unreliable narrators in this show, and that we still don't know what's happening fully.
It's as much as a confirmation that they created the girls by using the thread.
It's the same thing of like them saying like, oh, a Jedi doesn't pull their weapon unless they're going to kill. And people like Jedi theory is like, well, the Jedi use their lightsabers for other stuff. It's like, yeah, that's the point. You think maybe she got like a warped and distorted and untrue idea of what the Jedi are and who they are? Wonder if that's going to be explored later on. Who would have thought?
Head and the Force as it is when she turned into that freaking sharp-toothed demon creature with black eyes, disintegrating herself and disintegrating May, and then Soul was like, oh, you look evil, I'm gonna kill you to save the child. I was gonna let him go. How could you think this? What? Who writes this? No, she got flack for it, and she's understanding, well, maybe this actually does destroy Star Wars, because when she went to write it, she didn't understand any of the lore or Star Wars in general, and is now backtracking and say, well, you know what?
Leslye Headland has very much shown that she understands the lore. She just has. I'm sorry.
We didn't actually say that the witches created... You know what, K-Man? Can you add some clips that confirm that they did indeed insinuate that the girls were created from the thread, the Force?
It's the twins' blood test results. The M count is very high. Extremely high. Very force sensitive. Even identical twins would have different symbionts.
It's because of however they were made.
Yeah, so they're clones.
Twins were artificially created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Reporter's response, fair enough. But yes.
Again, that's not a confirmation. We have not seen how they were made or created. We don't know. That's not a confirmation that they were created or made. Or by the Night Sisters. We don't know. It's a mystery. That's how that works, buddy.
Yes, obviously.
And the idea that, like, they made this show, they have talked, like, she has talked with Dave Filoni, they have all talked together, a lot of them have studied the Star Wars lore a lot. Leslye Headland has shown that she knows a lot. She has picked, like, very obscure things from Legends and brought it into canon. They understand Star Wars. So the idea that they, like, made this show and then, like, afterwards were like, oh, fuck, like, oh, man, we didn't think about this. Now I gotta give this interview and act like it's just such brain dead analysis.
Yes, it's intimated very strongly that's what happened. I believe, why, bro, you wrote this. Why did you just say and have me go on a 5-minute tangent that's a backwards question because you haven't confirmed it, and then saying, yes, obviously, it's intimated very strongly that that's what happened. Bro, what the I believe...
Whoa, I wonder why they would... strongly hint to something being happened, but not fully confirm it yet. You think maybe there's going to be some mystery there? You think maybe something's going to go on there?
That the former is true for the Coven and the latter is true for Anastasia. I think Anastasia, not unlike Venestra, they're these very compelling leaders that have very intense senses of foresight. And Anastasia was always thought of as this religious figure that gained followers more and more as she moved out into the world. So for her, I think she always sort of knew that she needed to settle somewhere in order to bring fruition. Not a grand scheme. But so before they went to this planet, they had essentially like next to no powers, right? So because they went to this planet now.
Where is that said anywhere? Like this is something that he's pulling out of his ass. That's not said or insinuated anywhere.
Now they have all of these powers, and the power of one, the power of many. Not really. It's just like the power of this planet that gives you actual powers. Otherwise, you go off of it, and you're like literally just a normal human being. So for her, I think she always sort of knew.
Like, where is he getting that? Nowhere has that been insinuated or said. We've seen vergences in the Force many times. The cave on Dagobah allowed Luke to see a vision. Yoda saw a vision out of Force versions. The witches on Dathomir were able to do really strong magic. How is this not connecting for him?
Knew that she needed to settle somewhere in order to bring fruition, not a grand scheme, but what was the next step of her journey would have been the height of her powers. And I think she also knew that at some point in utilizing the extent of her powers, that her destruction would come pretty soon after that. Well, using the height of her powers made her look like some demon creature that was trying to disintegrate a child that Soul was trying to protect. So, I mean, yeah, if you're gonna do that, maybe, you know, try to not look so scary when you're trying to save a child. I mean, if you're, I don't know. Vernestra's having a similar experience.
How would they do that? That's just what they look like when they are disapparating. I don't know what they call it. But the Night Sisters can do that, like teleport, basically. I don't. I'm gonna tell you, this is established Star Wars lore.
Of something will tip the scale. She's Leslie's wife. She's understanding they have this destiny. They believe that, let's just make my wife the most powerful character in the show, because, you know, nepotism, why not? She's understanding they have this destiny. They believe that they have the destination spiritually. Vernestra is putting the pieces together for herself that this is it. This is what's coming. Not unlike Anastasia, what's coming is going to be the fulfillment of that particular destiny. Vergences have played an important part in Star Wars. Oh, here we get to it. Since the original trilogy, even if not everyone is familiar with the term, but there are different types. What can you tell us specifically about the nature of the Vergence on Brenda? This was very important to me, Dave Filoni, and to Pablo Hidalgo. That's the girls are not a Vergence. The girls themselves are not a Vergence in the Force. They needed, again, however they got here. The act of creating them was going to need amplification. Therefore, okay, so she literally just debunks what we were talking about a couple minutes ago, where the act of creating them was going to need amplification. Pause. I asked because I want to know what came first. They found the planet, they moved there, and then decided to create the girls? Or they moved to Brendok specifically to create the girls? That's a really good question, says Leslye. It's also a backwards question because we haven't confirmed that the witches created them. And then a few lines later she says, this was very important to me. The girls are not a Vergence. The girls themselves are not a Vergence in the Force. They needed, again, however they got here, the act of creating them was going to need amplification. Therefore, we came around to the decision.
Right, again, that's not a confirmation that the witches created them. Are we following there? Are the neurons firing there? Like, does that make sense? This is not a contradiction.
Decision that the Vergence was on Brendok. Because you couldn't create a Vergence in the Force for the child, you had to create it for the planet, to create the child. I guess that's okay then.
I've encountered a Vergence in the Force.
Like a fire on a brick wall? The whole mountain is on fire.
And that it would remain
It was very obviously, it zoomed in and showed that it was an electrical fire that was started. And yeah, this whole idea, like, again, they keep saying that this is like downplays Anakin's importance. Anakin himself was a Vergence in the Force. That, like, we don't know of any other individual that's ever been that. We know, oh my god, it's just so fucking stupid. We know that Plagueis and his master Tenebrous were experimenting with creating life, with essence transfer. This seems to be essence transfer. From what we're seeing, it is one essence of a person split into two people. And so now we're being shown what seems to be the very beginning of this, of the experimenting with this. And so I just don't know why anyone would have a problem with that. It's in the Legends content. It seems to be being brought into canon. The fuck is anybody's problem with that?
Mysterious. So that way, if we went back there in the future tellings of the story, we could uncover a little bit more about what is actually there. It was important that this type of vergence was a natural one as opposed to within a human being or an alien. It's literally stated in the show that they manipulate threads, that they pull on the threads of the... Like, he literally explains in episode 3 and then a little more in episode 7 that she pulls on threads to manipulate things and therefore created these two children. Soul even asks, how were the children created? As they know that they were manipulated and created through the Force. If you don't want something to be so, don't write it that way.
Oh, maybe somebody else, maybe a Sith, was also involved in their creation.
It's so simple. Okay, this is not even my question. It is Soul's twins. Where did they come from? How were they created? She laughs. Well, tune in next week. Also subscribe to Disney Plus. Tune in next week. We definitely aren't going to leave you hanging. You do a show like this, you take a lot of risks. You don't really save a lot of those types of questions for season 2. There are a lot of things you do to save for a season 2, but that kind of question is not one of them. Okay. Wait till next week, everyone, on Dragon Ball Z. You know if you're definitely getting a season 2? No. I had to ask. I have no idea. Well, not that I have no idea. Right there. Says it all. I would say there are conversations. Definitely doing season 2. And I don't know when that'll happen. So it's gone from no to, yeah, we just don't know when we're going to release season 2. I don't know.
Okay, she said, is there definitely season 2? Definitely, we don't know. No, not definitely. Yeah, it seems like an official decision hasn't been made yet. I don't know what the problem is there. Yeah, I mean, it seems like I feel like hopefully the ending is going to be satisfying and also set up a season 2 because like I do want this story expanded and I think it's very interesting. I wish that the episodes were longer. I wish that the season was longer. Maybe I really miss like the Clone Wars, where there were just like a lot of, this episodes were short, but there was a lot of episodes within a season, and it just feels like storylines, even in that short period of time, were able to be told much better. This feels like very short, I don't know, but it feels like a story that would play out well over several seasons, and hopefully they can improve on it and make even more people happy than seem to be happy with it. Some people are very unhappy with it, and that's fine. But, obviously we all would love for it to improve and be even better than it is.
Know when that decision will be made. 100% we're getting season. Plagueis and Palpatine. Anastaea's ability to be in Torben's mind while physically existing in the real world was very reminiscent of Mother Talzin's powers, as was Anastaea's ability to change her corporeal form into shadows. You've talked about your love and appreciation of the Night Sisters before. Were those powers directly inspired by Talzin? Absolutely. Talzin is a figure that looms really large in Star Wars for me. On the Clone Wars, obviously I responded to them immediately because it was more Star Wars content. It was George Lucas' Star Wars content. But I was blown away by the Night Sister arc. Asaja's storyline, I was just like, hold on, this can happen? This is in Star Wars? You mean someone who was in the light turning to the dark side? Oh, but I guess it's different because she's a female.
I think that Star Wars is so gay already.
She never heard of Darth Vader? I mean, Count Dooku? Jesus. I was just...
Why is he assuming what she found interesting about the storyline? That is fucking stupid. Like, probably it's like the different way in which they interacted with the Force and how they used an aspect of the Force that they called magics, and that she wasn't really a Sith or a Jedi. Yeah, I mean her storyline, if you're going from like just like normal ass Star Wars content to this, it is pretty unique and new and cool.
I love the character design. A bald female. Vernestra. There we go. I see. I love the differentiation between their
I'm sorry, but Asajj Ventress is badass as fuck. I don't know what to tell you.
Powers and the Jedi's powers. It was all just really great. You mean the differentiation between the dark side and the light side? So hold on. Asajj stuck out to her because she was a female. Let's be real about this. Because there's nothing special about Asajj. I love Asajj. I think she's dope. I think we need...
She is special. She is a trained assassin that comes from Dathomir, from the Night Sister Coven. She lost her entire coven. They were all unalived. And then she kind of have a complicated relationship with the dark side of the Force and with the Jedi. And
need more badass female character in Star Wars who don't suck like Rey and Reva. And that's just because they're written poorly. But you write them well, like Asajj Ventress or Ahsoka Tano in the Clone Wars, you get really well-made characters. Mara Jade, heir to the Empire. I mean, the list goes on. Bastila Shan, blah, 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 blah. So in making the show, I knew one of the first things I wanted to take a look at was creating my own version of witches, because why not? Let's put your stamp on it too. Because I think that the Night Sisters are a bit more mercenary. The Acolytes witches, I think, basically want to stay out of everyone's way and aren't grasping for any sort of power. Hold on. They're not grasping for any sort of power, yet they purposely go to this planet that amplifies their otherwise weak ass into some sort of like super powerful thread force pulling beings. But they're not looking for power. Okay, thank you. They're not getting
what kind of power do you think she's talking about? Oh, look, the next line. They're not getting involved in any kind of political skirmish or any war movement. They're just going to where they can practice their force abilities more and be protected. And the whole like idea around creating the twins seems to be like a way to continue their lineage, and because it seems like they don't train younglings, they don't mate. So yeah, I mean, it's all making sense for me.
Involved in any kind of political skirmish or any war movement. Well, yeah, because it's a time of peace, Leslye. This is supposed to be a time of peace for the Jedi. The only people around are Plagueis, Tenebris, Venomous, 7 other dark side users that Plagueis was potentially going to take under his wing, and he landed on Palpatine. But they were all in the shadows. None of them were making themselves known. Of course, there's no war. It's supposed to be a time of peace. The only war is the one that you interjected into this timeline, which was supposed to be time of peace. That would be the last thing they would want to do. So
yeah, so that's what she fucking created. Jesus Christ.
Very different, but still echoing and calling back to the influences that those characters had on me. In terms of their specific powers, how are the Acolytes witches different from the Night Sisters? The Night Sisters utilize magic exclusively. With my witches, my witches, and not the Acolytes. With my witches...
Yeah, because she fucking came up with it. Just like with your version of Luke Skywalker, where you used an AI likeness of Mark Hamill without his permission. Yeah, it's hers.
It's a bit of a hybrid. They're definitely dabbling in the Force and calling the Force by a different name. They're trying to cultivate their sensitivity to it without having to be trained by the Jedi. Is that even possible? Well, I guess so if you go to a planet that amplifies your powers 100-fold or whatever, where if you're taken off this planet, you're literally nobody.
Who? Stop saying that. Who fucking said that? Nobody has said that. Jesus Christ. There are dozens of sects, splinter groups, witch covens that we've seen in canon and non-canon of people who have different relationships, practice the Force differently than the Jedi do. It's not just the Jedi and the Sith, obviously. I don't know where he keeps getting this idea that if they leave the planet, they're just nothing. They're just normal-ass human beings. Nobody's ever said that. They're like every other fucking Force-sensitive person that has their abilities amplified when they go to this planet, right? Because, like...
Nothing. But I also think that in the Ascension ceremony, you see how they're utilizing not just...
Right, because like they have these customs that seem to be very old. Did they just develop these customs as soon as they got on this planet? Like they just learned about the Force and viewed it as a thread? Like,
just wherever the vergence may be physically on the planet, but the eclipse. These powerful movements of heavenly bodies and whatever's under the earth, that type of thing. What is meant to be expressed there is that they are drawing their power from nature, magic, and the Force. So we never sort of go, they're using magic the way that the Night Sisters are. They're using the Force even though they're not Jedi. Right. So they're using the thread. They're manipulating the thread on this planet that amplifies their weakness. Put me on that planet, I'll start flying and moving rocks, essentially. To me,
Not if you're not Force sensitive. This is what oh my god. So stupid. Yeah.
me, it felt more interesting to show a group of people, a group of witches, having abilities that the Jedi could not pinpoint. That the Jedi weren't going, oh, well, that's magic. Oh, well, that's the Force. That's one of the reasons they get so thrown off by what they're seeing. It's so unpredictable, and it's difficult for them to categorize and then report back to the Council. But then if they're on this planet, why aren't the Jedi able to amplify their powers as well? It just, like, one rule applies to the witches, but it doesn't apply to the Jedi who also use the Force? None of this makes any sense. None of this. The Jedi...
So, it would amplify their powers, but also like it's not always like something that is controlled, right? Like Luke was very near a Force vergence, and he was still pretty low powered. And then when he went into the cave, he really had no control over what was going on. He experienced this vision in the Force. Same kind of thing with Yoda. And my theory is that like it may take like understanding that the Force vergence is there, and then tapping into it and developing a relationship with it, so to speak. Right. So like we haven't seen that like a Force vergence just makes you a super powered hero. It does various things to various Force sensitive people, and we don't really know how it affected the Jedi, but it probably did affect them somehow.
Are trying to get as much information as they can, but each time they interact with the witches, they're getting different impressions of what the Coven is doing. I think they interacted with them like once, and the second time they interacted with them, they literally had her turn into like some demon ghost, and then they stabbed a fart, and that was it. Going into this episode, the show definitely suggested that the Jedi might have done something truly terrible on Brenda, but I think this episode showed that all of their actions were either genuinely noble, totally defensible, or at least understandable mistakes. What was the thematic purpose of raising the possibility of hidden Jedi crimes if you were then going to reveal that they were flawed rather than evil? I'm so glad it read that way for you. It's a show about the bad guys in every sense of that word. Jedi are the bad guys. They're the oppressors. And because my previous work before coming into Star Wars was almost always concerned with some sort of morality, immorality, or amorality, it was always about characters running through a spectrum of those things as opposed to having a good character and a bad character, a good girl and a bad girl, a nice guy and a womanizer. What the f*** talking about Han Solo?
Look, your worshipfulness, let's get one thing straight. I take orders from just one person, me.
Why does it... Just say you hate men, dude. Just say it. That these characters could be all of these things at once was important to me. I'm glad that you got that impression from watching the episode. That Jedi are not performing evil acts. Yeah, okay, well that's not really how you wrote it for us to view. It kind of seems like you're essentially trying to empathize with the witches, that you made them the main character, these Jedi have come to this planet, trespassing, literally, and have been told to leave, are there after children, and won't stop until they get the children because they're interjecting their beliefs onto this coven that has gone to this planet to amplify their powers, but they don't care about power, and they've then created 2 children from the Force. Bro, in episode 3, Anastasia literally says, I created them. And then the other chick, Coral, says, I carried them. What are you talking about? I don't know. They're not being willfully oppressive. They're not.
So I think the idea there is to sympathize somewhat with the Jedi and with the Coven. One of the big critiques right now with like the talking side of the fandom is that they want us to see the Jedi as bad people. And clearly that it was not her intent. That's not how it read from me. How I read it is that for whatever reason, Sol gave into his emotions and was disturbed. And Dara said this very early on in episode 7 that he was disturbed. And it's very clear that he is very much in tune with other people's minds, that it's kind of insinuated that it's very easy for him to read people's minds. But it's also clear that he was not really secure in his own thoughts, that he was projecting a lot of his own thoughts on other people, that he was like mistaking other people's emotions with his own, that he just really wasn't secure and stable. And it's very clear to me from the moment that he sees May and OSHA that he has a strong sense of protectiveness over them. Right away, we see that Coral comes off very combative and maybe abusive in his eyes. These are the only kids around, and like obviously they don't seem to be related to Mother Coral. And so he just has a very strong concern for the twins. And then as things go on, as he meets the Coven, Covens are not known to raise younglings or to train younglings. They're not allowed to. And so to him, there's these two young girls, and in the middle of this Coven, and he feels that they're not safe there, like genuinely. And a lot of what goes on stems from that. And then everything else, like with Torben, he seems to be very susceptible. Mother Anastasia uses Force Corrupt on him, gets into his mind, and it's insinuated elsewhere that can really leave a scar and leave you disturbed afterwards. And it's clear that like his desire to go home was just super amplified after that. And that stuck with him for the rest of his life. And on the flip side, from the Coven's point of view, we have these, this group of Jedi that are coming in that are basically viewed as the galactic cops of the universe. They just want to be left alone. They feel that they are being encroached upon. They feel that they're going to take members of their Coven. They're going to take these twins. They feel very protective of them. They feel very protective of themselves. And there's just like a lack of communication between them, a lack of understanding between them. And this makes sense for like a galaxy-wide universe that we're having stories in. It's easy for people that live in the same country to have misunderstandings with each other. It would be super, super easy from people from entirely different parts of the galaxy, people living on a secluded planet out in the Outer Rim, and these Jedi to have a huge misunderstanding with each other. And just all these different points of view, it's just all very interesting. I don't want a story where it's just like, oh, okay, here's the good guys, and then here's the bad guys, and they're just bad because they're evil, and they want to do bad stuff, and they want to take over the world. That's just not interesting to me. I don't want to hear that same story over and over again. This is interesting. This has depth to it.
Not manipulating or tricking anyone. So if the show, with all of the other characters, is exploring the spectrum of morality, the Stranger being a great example, May being a great example, it felt to me that the Jedi also had to have that particular treatment. The Jedi could not be part of that thematic element of the show. Why does Sol feel a connection to OSHA so immediately? And specifically, why does he feel like she's meant to be as a Padawan? I wanted to keep some mystery around that. I wanted to definitely call back to Qui-Gon, call forward to Qui-Gon and Anakin. Qui-Gon almost immediately zeroes in on the potential that Anakin has, the specialness of Anakin, the exceptionalism of Anakin. No, he does not. It takes him a long time to kind of come to the point where he realizes Anakin is actually special. It's not like, I am Anakin, oh my god, the chosen one, holy shit, which is literally what Sol was doing, hiding behind frickin' trees, and his pupils were dilated as he saw these children. He's like,
oh my god, I don't know how he can... It's just so fucking obvious that, like, first he's surprised because there's not supposed to be anyone on this planet. And he sees them using the Force. Like, whoa, that's crazy. And then he sees Mother Coral come in and, like, chastise them and be really harsh with them. That's what's going on there. It's not like, oh, these girls are special and I need to have one of them as my Padawan. That is not what is happening there. It takes him a while to admit that probably about as long as we saw Qui-Gon interacting with Anakin, that he felt the need that one of them was meant to be his Padawan.
Like, oh my God, they're going to be the best Jedi ever. They're going to be my apprentice. He's like essentially going through
That's just not insinuated
fever,
at all.
what like a woman would go through baby fever. He's essentially going through that with a Padawan fever. He wants a Padawan of his own and doesn't have one. And for some reason, he's hell-bent on training one of the twins or both of them. And then when he finds out that they were artificially made through the Force, he's even more hell-bent on it. But Qui-Gon Jinn, he took so much time to kind of feel Anakin out, see him out, see like, okay, well, like, how does he do with the pod race? He's got gifts. He tells Shmi. He sees things before they happen. It's a Jedi trait. He's starting to understand and believe. He does tests. He literally tests Anakin's blood. And then he's sitting there thinking.
They also test the girl's blood. Like, it's just almost bar for bar the same fucking story. God, it makes me so frustrated. Jesus Christ. Like, immediately Qui-Gon is doing stuff that, like, Obi-Wan is not cool with. Like, betting on the pod race to, like, free him and, like,
thinking. And Obi-Wan's like, it's off the charts, Master. I don't know. It's 20,000. And he's like, what does this mean? And Qui-Gon's just looking there and he's like, I don't know. Nowhere in that moment is he like, he's the chosen one. I need to take him to the council. And
nowhere in the first moment where Sol meets OSHA and May is he like, oh, these are the one I need to talk to. It's like, it's pretty much around the same time limit. I could go back and watch and see how it progresses and time it. It's probably going to be about the same.
And train him immediately. Like, no, dude, he's literally like still with midichlorians higher than Grandmaster Yoda. He's sitting there.
And this is just like such a fucking autistic analysis. Like, what does it fucking matter? It's just like a callback to how Qui-Gon really saw something in Anakin and pushed to have them trained. And it's similar here with Sol. Is it a bar for bar, one-on-one comparison? No. It's not supposed to be. You would fucking complain if it was.
Like, I don't know what this means. And he's pondering on it and thinking. And still, he takes him to the council to be trained, to be requested to be trained.
Also, it's very, like, obvious that Sol is not Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon may be a little bit unruly, may break the rules here and there, but he is very stoic. He is very grounded in his feelings and in his emotions, very controlled over his emotions, very logical. Sol is not that. He is disturbed. He still seems to have a lot to learn, which is the reason he doesn't have a Padawan. It's just...
Please tell me you have hire better writers that know Star Wars. Hire people that understand the first 6 films like the back of their hand, because you won't get mistakes like this. Qui-Gon.
How is this a mistake? Qui-Gon does immediately zero in on the potential that Anakin has in his specialness and his exceptionalism. He does zero in on that. It does take a little bit of time to... Like first he just wants to have him trained as a Padawan. I just like I just feel like you have to do absolute backbends to come up with this kind of analysis.
And Anakin are nothing like Sol and OSHA and May. Not even comparable. But yet you're trying to copy and paste.
It's not a copy and paste. It's not comparable. It's a callback. It's a fucking callback. Like you're complaining that it's not the same, but then you're calling it copy and paste.
And we see what you're doing. Sol is like this extremely emotional, unbalanced, un-Jedi-like being who can't contain any level of emotion from spilling out. Whereas Qui-Gon is always...
Never seen that before.
Composed and always...
Yep, it's not a one-to-one comparison.
keeps his shit together like a man. There's just something that he feels within his connection with the Force, her strength in the Force, and how he recognizes that. Well, how does he recognize that if the power is amplifying their abilities? And so if that's the case, then when they go off planet, aren't they supposed to be much, much weaker? None of this makes any sense. Clearly wasn't thought out when she was writing it. And I always wondered, having seen The Phantom Menace and seen Qui-Gon behave...
It's such a stupid thing. It's like, we're going to write out this story for Disney Plus. We're not going to think about it when we write it. When it goes into the writing room for review, when Dave Filoni looks at it, nobody's thought about it. It's just like, oh, let's just put a story down. And I don't care what it's like. And it's just, like, do better with your fucking analysis, with your fucking critique. Obviously, they thought about this. And it's just a callback. Is it the same story? No. Is Soul the same as Qui-Gon Jinn? No. Is OSHA and May the same as Anakin? Nope.
The way they did. I did wonder, is this how it happened? Or do you just get matched up with somebody? And a much more compelling, interesting storyline is, as a Jedi Knight moving into Master, to identify your apprentice in a deep spiritual connection, whether it's out in the world or at the temple, as opposed to being paired up with someone. Well, yeah, it would be the same way with your dog. We all have special connections with our dogs because we're putting the time and energy into those memories and having connections with that being, with that soul. It's the same with your child or your apprentice or whatever. That's not really a totally unique thing in the sense that, like, it can only happen with that one person. Whoever you put your focus, your energy, and time with, you will build some kind of a connection. It may not be the best. I mean, for example, look at Yoda and Dooku. Look at Obi-Wan and Anakin. But then, you know, you get a great master and apprentice relationship. You look at Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, right, for example. Or, you know, even Yoda and Master Windu, for example. I would even say Anakin and Ahsoka had a pretty good connection. I'm glad you brought up Qui-Gon because I want to ask about Anakin. I think the connections between the twins and Anakin were obvious, even before this episode. But I want to focus on their differences. Specifically, this idea that their one consciousness split into two bodies. Why would that make them stronger, aka the power of two, and not weaker if they're two halves of one whole? I think it's both. The girls are guinea pigs. They're patient zero for this sort of power. It didn't work perfectly. Therefore, the girls on their own can never be as powerful as Anakin. Their full potential together has yet to be explored. They've been separated too long. Okay, so they're dyad. Cool, more dyad shit. I don't know, man. It's like in Dragon Ball Z when you get Goku and Vegeta fusing, they become like this ultimate powerful being. But now she's saying that like they're stronger when they're apart, when they're split. It's like when you're doing
That's the exact opposite of what she just said. They're stronger if you keep them together. But they've been apart so long. Like, it's obviously that they're strong. Like, they have a very high midi-chlorian count on their own. They are powerful Force users. But together, and I think that this is kind of like hinted at when they're training, that they are more powerful as two, that they're more powerful together. How that exactly works out, what the power amplification is, we don't know. But because they haven't like fostered that connection between each other, that they have been separated far, like we don't know what their full potential would be as individuals or as a unit, because that has not happened.
An experiment, and it's the first round of it. There are maybe not an experiment of creating Force-sensitive children from the Force, which is something that Palpatine and Plagueis could never do. All right, got you. Cool. They are maybe...
It's insinuated that Plagueis did do that. And then Palpatine later on was able to do essence transfer into clones. And it seems like this is maybe what have happened. That there was essence transfer into two different bodies. And again, it's my theory is that Tenebris, Plagueis are involved in this somehow.
Not the first, but one of the first experiments of this particular use of power. So the twins are weaker than Anakin.
And the use of this, especially like Darth Tenebris, Plagueis' master, he was first and foremost like a scientist. He believed in like logic and ration and science, but also believed in like using the Force as a tool for that end. And he very much did a lot of experiments in creating life, in essence transfer. And so my theory is that he has something to do with this. the idea of them as like guinea pigs, it just makes sense to me. And so, like, for me looking at that, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I want to see where this goes. I'm not going to be like again, because it's not been confirmed that the witches on their own created these girls. We don't know. We don't have a confirmation on their origin. We just don't. Like, as much as you want to point to the dialogue in the show, again, we've seen that the dialogue cannot necessarily be trusted.
It can for sure. They're going, well, she has to say that now. I feel like the reporter went through like a list of all the YouTubers' comments and discourse about the show, and he's just trying to hit on all those. And so Leslie's like trying to do damage control on all of those plot breaking points that she.
This seems like very run of the mill questions that you would ask for the show, and these seem like very interesting run of the mill answers for the show. I don't get the idea where she's like doing damage control, that she's like trying to retcon what she wrote to make it make more sense to people. Like, these are just very like bare bones basic explanations that 100% line up with what was written.
Created, because there are so many questions now. So the Nerdist reached out and they're like, hey, let's address all of the things that, you know, these YouTubers are talking about, these people online are talking about, and, you know, you can like fix everything. Yeah, that'd be a great idea. No, that's not how this works. They're going to fall short of what will eventually become the chosen one. They will never achieve what that is, because in my mind, Anastasia could only do so much. Okay, so she did create them. She keeps literally confirming she created them. And
again, this is not confirmed, and then it's not about, like, she could be talking about like how she fostered that connection between them, how she raised them. I don't know.
In the show, but then in the interview, she says she doesn't. Like, are you trying to be smart? The twins split, Anastasia's power split, and therefore a lot of her philosophy is about the power of two, about the fact that they must stay together. They must stay together. The twins are stronger together if she keeps them together. And obviously there's an analogy to this of the isolationist feeling, not just the coven, but also of family. If I can keep you safe, then you won't get hurt. You won't get hurt. Why does she keep repeating it twice? Power of two thing going on? This is why the Jedi blowing up this dynamic, both in episode 3 and 7, is so important to see, because Anastasia starts to essentially go into this crisis as a parent. Of course, I know they need to stay together, but they also need to be their own person. So perhaps I need to let go of my own design and trust that this is what's meant to be, because what's the other option? That I force my children to be people they're not. Okay, so this is therapy. So there's therapy time. Whole show, therapy time. Very nice. Why are the twins the...
God fucking forbid that somebody write a story based around like normal human emotions. Jesus Christ. I think it was very interesting that Anastasia chose being a mother over being the leader of her coven. And perhaps she foresaw bad things if the girl stayed. Perhaps she just decided that it wouldn't be worth keeping the coven alive if it meant forcing people into positions, or forcing her daughter into a position she didn't want to be in. And that's interesting storytelling to me. I don't know about you.
The coven's future, and why would letting OSHA go with the Jedi sacrifice? Listen, Leslye, we all have like childhood trauma. We all have things that we need to go to therapy for. We're not going to interject that into a $180 million Star Wars project. Please.
Why the fuck not? Trauma, like shared human experience, human emotions, it makes for great storytelling. Like, what do you want in your story? Like, I feel like these people just want like Michael Bay Star Wars. They just want like very stereotypical characters. They want them to be like the archetype of what they are supposed to be. And then they want lightsaber grower. That's all they want. That's all they want. They do not care about deep stories or interesting characters or character development. They don't care.
Leave that shit out of it. I don't bring my issues to the table. Nobody brings their issues to the table in that sense when they're coming to do a professional job of telling a story. It's so clear that this is...
I want to shoot myself in the head in Minecraft. I don't know how anyone could take that seriously.
is a very, very personal thing for you, and you're literally using this company's money to try and create something that will make you sleep better at night. What the hell?
Yeah. Music is often best when told from a deeply personal place. Stories are best when told from a deeply personal place. What is Blood yapping about?
Man, we all got issues. We all got problems. We're humans. We live on this planet, we go through shit, and then we croak. That's how it goes. But don't.
And then we tell fucking cool, dramatic stories about it, okay? What? Somebody used their human experience to make a story? What? No, you need to come and be a professional. You need to come into Disney and write the story that I'm like, what the fuck do you even want as a story? Jesus Christ.
Interject this into that? What the hell, dude? Why are the twins?
Yeah, George Lucas famously did not put any of his shared life experience or anything like that into his stories at all. Sure, bro.
The Coven's future, and why would letting OSHA go with the Jedi sacrifice their future? Why does a powerful coven of witches need new leaders anyway? Not unlike what I was just saying, that Anastasia and the Coven do believe, to be the extent that the witches understand them, that the power of two will breed the power of many, meaning that these young girls will start a legacy that could actually grow and grow and grow. That is unlike the Sith, who are going to operate with only two always. One to have the power and one to crave it. That dynamic and that balance is how the Sith stay around. Right, but before Revan, before Bane, that wasn't really the case. There's just a shitload of them, like the Brotherhood of Darkness. Part of what the Coven...
Right, and that's why like they were like unaliving themselves all the time, which is why the whole two Sith thing came about, and it's why that they were able to stay around.
Wants, even if it's not what Anastasia wants, is this legacy. This feeling of the two girls ascending into becoming the leaders of the Coven, of being little Dalai Lamas they can worship, that they would proliferate, being able to create more children or being able to create more. The witches are powerful, very powerful, but they're only powerful together. As you can see with what happened with Kelnaka, they could not be able to, one by one, do what they did with him. Right, then they all died. Why did they all die when Endar... Dude, this is literally damage control, this whole article. Why did they all...
No, it's not. That's a good question. That's not damage control. That's an interesting question that anyone would ask if given the chance. I don't understand.
Die when Endara freed Kelnaka. This was a big question when we were working on the episode. To me, it was very important because it told two stories. One, that Endara, despite her, she's going to say what, they're all connected or something. One, that Endara, despite her being completely and utterly the consummate Jedi in this episode, I did feel it was important that she also misjudged something. If we were going to explore those themes, she couldn't just be this infallible Jedi. She also had to have something else going on with her. And I think what she did is, in the moment, in trying to sever the connection between Kelnaka and the witches, she dealt with a power that she did not understand and was familiar with. Did she kill them? Yeah. She didn't know what was going to happen to them. Okay. That's quite the power. Wow. I mean, if only Anakin had such a power, he could have literally just short-circuited all of the droids in the Clone Wars. Or Yoda. I mean, hey, why not? The most powerful Jedi in existence. Almost 900 years old. He could have just, boom, just like that with a little head tip. But I guess it's the power of the planet that does that too.
So it seemed like what she did was like sedate him maybe, or I don't know. But I just don't understand why we have to like see it as this like huge expression of power. She just went into his mind and somehow severed that connection. And so like I think that she probably didn't understand what was going on with him. They had seen this happen once with Torben. And it was just like very terrifying. It's obvious that it took all of them to make this connection to be able to control Kanaka, and that connection was tenuous. Kanaka's mind was probably very strong. And maybe, you know, she kind of joined in with Kelnaka's mind, and the two of them together were able to overpower the witches. I don't know. It's just not like a problem in the story to me. It makes sense to me that would happen without also other powerful Jedi being able to just like short circuit the entire droid army at one time.
To you. Maybe they could like take a piece of soil from the planet and like put it in their robes, and wherever they go, they're like amplified. You know, maybe something like that. Or, you know, maybe Palpatine could have taken the Death Star and destroyed the planet and like had all of that power emanate into the galaxy so that everyone can benefit from having extra powers of this.
Again, I don't know why he's like saying this as like it's a unique thing to the Acolyte. George Lucas made Dathomir, a planet that is the Vergence. Like, why aren't we doing this exact same fucking, like, all of this applies to the Night Sisters, George Lucas's creation on Dathomir. It's the exact same fucking shit. So why aren't we having that discussion?
Vergence on a planet. Cool. Was it intentional? No, she did not know. All she was thinking was, I have to save him. Again, it starts to become a selfish want. I must save this colleague of mine. I have to do this. If I don't do this, then something terrible could happen to him. Bro, I wouldn't be so worried about what happens to Kelnaka. I would be worried about what happens to all you Jedi. He's going to kill all of you guys. What do you mean? It's either them or us. So what is this? What's the option here? And they're causing this. We've seen what they're capable of. I've seen them do this to my Padawan. They're now doing it to an incredibly powerful Jedi Master. What do I do? Okay, I'm going to make this decision. Okay, so she did mean to kill them. I now see why May was written the way she was, where she can't make up her mind. 1 minute she does one thing, 1 minute she does another thing. It's literally because Leslye.
I don't think that she like knew necessarily that she was going to kill them. I think that she like she made that decision. Like she couldn't know that. Like how could she know that? Yeah.
Leslye Headland can't make up her own mind, even in this interview, where she'll say one thing and then she'll completely contradict and then say the other thing. What is going on here? But she doesn't know what the consequences of that decision will be. The same way that Sol doesn't know what his actions will mean for OSHA's future. Corbin doesn't really put together, because he's so young, that the consequences of his actions are going to lead to all of this falling apart. The consequences of what actions, bro? He didn't even do anything. He literally had his...
Yes, he did. He was the one that went off at the last minute to go get the girls. They're like, hey, if we get the girls, they're the virgins. If we get the girls and, you know, get back, then we can leave. He was the one that left. Everything that happened was pretty much his fault. Things probably would have turned out differently if he didn't take that action. And if Sol didn't have to chase him on his own, and then if Indara and Kelnaka didn't have to come separately. Did he watch the show?
His mind infiltrated by this witch who like got all sexual and weird with him and then told him to get on his knees. What is he guilty of? Indara had to also make that mistake in order to continue exploring that idea. What mistake? Let them all be killed by Kelnaka and then Kelnaka be killed as well? What are you talking about? Coral says she would die before she let the Jedi take her children. Then the Jedi like OSHA. So is it okay to assume she's dead? Because the episode definitely suggests she survived. Yeah, no body, no death. That's all I have to say about that one. All right, yeah. Considering this angry, powerful, force-sensitive witch might be out there, and we also have this unexplained, powerful dark side user out there as well, is it possible that Coral and Kimir know each other? Oh, I can answer that. They do not know each other, but what I will say as a tease, if we are able to explore this story more, her species will tell you a little bit about where she ends up. Okay, cool. So, Dathomir. Interjecting into Dathomir, and probably put into Ahsoka Season 2. We know Anastasia is right when she says, someday those noble intentions you all have will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy. But how exactly does she know that? Is it just a prediction from a very smart person? Bro, it's like they literally watched my breakdown, and they just are asking her questions from that. I mean, at least give me credit, bro. Come on. Is it just a prediction from a very smart person, or is that comment related to the twins' destiny? I think she's seeing the way the Jedi are reacting to her children, and she may not know this exactly, but she knows they will make the same mistake with Anakin. So, George Lucas said that Darth Vader is still the chosen one, even when he's Darth Vader, that Anakin was always the chosen one, and that the Jedi training him wasn't a mistake because he was still the chosen one when he was in the dark side, and that's how he brings balance. People have character arcs, they go through things, they do things that they do not agree with later on in life, their values change, and that's what happened with Anakin into Darth Vader, and then back into Anakin. That, to me, is like she's going against what George created 100%. And
how? Like, yes, he's still the chosen one. He's still like it just didn't happen how the Jedi thought it was going to happen. Like, yes, everything that happened was supposed to happen, but it still happened because of the hubris of the Jedi. Like, they caused their downfall. And him helping and unaliving all of them was a part of their downfall. And a part of that was all the good intentions that they had. Like, it's just his inability to, like, make connections is fascinating. It needs to be studied.
And that's not cool. When May asks for help, Anastasia not only starts dematerializing her own body, she makes May turn into a shadow as well. Bro, they literally watched my breakdown or just taking questions from this shit. What can you tell us about what exactly is happening there and why? Anastasia's main concern is that violence will be used in this confrontation. And I talked about that meaning two things. One, that Anastasia must have come from some place that utilized violence. It's something she would have seen when she was a child, something that she would have endured in her coming of age. Okay, cool. So another therapy session. So the main concern is obviously the safety of...
No, it's just called character development. It's called giving us it's called giving a character a storyline. Do you just want them to be fucking blank slates until the moment that we meet them? Like, what the fuck? Jesus goddamn Christ. Jesus Christ.
For children. So was this working with Weinstein? Is that where that's coming from? The physical safety of them. The secondary concern is, I do not want my children or my legacy to be affected by something violent. I want to remove them from whatever that is.
Like, is he going to say the same thing about Anakin growing up as a slave and how that affected him? Like, losing his mother and how that affected him? Why is he not complaining that, like, why are we putting a fucking therapy session in here? We all had issues as kids, man. Why are we putting that into a show? Jesus.
Why about dematerializing is the first thing that Jody and I talked about in seeing the character. What she is doing is what Jecki says in episode 4, that it's an honor to see anyone transform into the Force. I believe that yes, transforming herself and May into the Force in a way that doesn't kill them. I didn't know the Force transformed you into a literal demon with sharp teeth so that you could rip apart meat and flesh and turn your eyes black. That is so whack. That is like, please tell me you don't understand the lore without telling me.
We've seen the Night Sisters do that. George Lucas's Night Sisters do that. Yep, that's what happens when they dematerialize. Now you know, blood.
You don't understand the lore. It's wild, dude. How can anybody defend that? Hey, let's just shoot.
Because it seems like it is something of a dark side ability.
She was literally becoming a Force ghost, which is like the embodiment of the light side, the embodiment of the Force itself. And so when...
like, how can he so confidently say this when we have seen other witches dematerialize? In George Lucas's Star Wars, in Jedi Fallen Order. Like, yeah, it's not something they pulled out of their ass, bro.
Doing that, she takes the form of a demon with sharp teeth. Well, you know what? You directed it that way. You could have had her turn into like a happy-go-lucky, like golden, white, shining light, like just angel
what are we doing,
with wings. And
where are we going?
Soul would have been like, what the heck's going on here? And like, but you had a deteriorating black smoke, demon-looking, sharp teeth, long, thin-faced, like something out of a horror movie with black eyes. Why direct it like this and then try to defend the witches? Soul confuses.
Because the witches aren't inherently evil. That's why. But they appear scary. That's the whole point, buddy.
Uses May for OSHA during the standoff right before he kills Anastasia. What does that mix-up reveal about Soul, both in that moment and for his presumed connection with OSHA? That he doesn't know her well as he thinks he does. Kymir has a similar reaction to OSHA that Soul has. Soul has the Qui-Gon Anakin connection with her. This is a powerful Force-sensitive child. This child is meant to be my Padawan. I'm drawn to this particular... But George already did that in episode 1, and that was supposed to be the first time that happened. So why are you now trying to put in place, before George did any of that, now say that, oh, no, I was the original. This is the first time it actually happened. It was my story, my witches. That's just so weird. I'm drawn to this.
No, it's not. Like, why is it weird? Like, you're really telling me that, like, no one else in the Star Wars universe had ever, like, really been drawn to another person in the Force and wanted them to be their acolyte or their Padawan or their pupil. Like, what? Kymir has been searching for a pupil diligently. And he comes across OSHA. He thinks, oh, and May. Turns out May was not right for him. OSHA probably won't end up being right for him. We'll see. But yeah, they're very strong in the Force. So yeah, he's probably going to be drawn to her. He's drawn to her loyalty to Soul. And so, like, I just don't know why this, like, ruins Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin.
This particular power, which means I need to help this young woman reach her full potential as a Jedi. Okay. Chimere has the exact same experience with her in episode 2. The second OSHA walks into the apothecary, he knows that it's not May. He can feel that this is something different. He can feel that he wants to teach her. Chimere wants to be a part of her journey in reaching her full potential. What I think is interesting is that Chimere and later the Stranger never mistakes OSHA for May, and Soul mistakes OSHA for May at least twice. That's also meant to foreshadow who OSHA's real master will be. Oh, nice. So OSHA's okay, so right there. So she all that's for nothing, and then OSHA becomes the apprentice to Chimere. Sweet. That makes a lot of sense, dude. Let me just train for 17 years. And then switch my mind up and now get the different perspective and be with Soul. And then let me want to kill this person who's killed my friend. And then now I'm going to join him after he kidnapped me to a private island and I saw his Winky. Okay. Indara
yeah, we definitely haven't seen Jedi flip-flop from the dark side back to the light side. We haven't seen Jedi train their whole lives and then flip to the dark side in a very short period of time. That's just never happened before, bro.
I think Soul is letting his emotion and feelings get in the way, but he insists that's not what is happening. Who's right? I think she's right as a Jedi. She's right in terms of the institution they're part of. He's right because if you're not going with your instinct and your emotions when you are looking for a Padawan, or feel children are in danger, or sense the misuse of power, what else would you be relying on? When the Council says no in The Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon's like, F it, I'll do it myself. He respectfully says no. What I wanted to explore here was, we asked the Council, they said no, and everyone's kind of going. We can't stand up, we can't say those things. What's great about Qui-Gon is that he is able to maintain his emotional sobriety while also advocating for his new relationship with his Padawan. Soul was unable to do that, but I don't think that's a flaw as a human. I think as a human or a father, Soul is right, but I think as a Jedi, Indara is right. Those are the two sides of Soul that are in conflict here. Soul has no business being a Jedi. You can't compare Soul with Qui-Gon. He is literally a emotional ball of mess. With May talking about
yeah, I don't think that they're really trying to compare. He's obviously different. I don't think he's like unique as far as like some other Jedi that we've seen act out of emotion or even turn to the dark side. I think he definitely had or has a lot to learn. Maybe he doesn't belong as a Jedi, or maybe he needs to be, you know, exclusively at the temple or like work the archives or something like that. There was all different kinds of Jedi jobs, and a lot of them, most of them weren't like out in the field or in combat or anything like that. So yeah,
walking through fear and everyone being sacrificed to fulfill their destiny. Was Soul correct that the girls were in danger? No, May misremembered what her mother said. Soul misinterpreted it, but it's because the child did. He was believing what the child said and genuinely thought, well, she says sacrifice, so this is bad. But she's misremembering what her mother said, which is that you have to sacrifice a part of yourself. Oh yeah, you just sacrifice, you know, like an arm. No big deal. Just a piece. Just a piece is all we want. That's okay. That's all right. What were the natural desires?
this is yeah. Jedi definitely teach that you have to sacrifice a lot. You have to sacrifice connections. And there's probably the same kind of lesson that Mother NSA was trying to teach, but that was misremembered.
Desires Torben was suppressing. Was he really homesick, or was he missing someone or something instead? No, he wanted to go home. I like the idea. It just seems so human to me. I just want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. Oh yeah, cool. Should do great in the army for sure. Unreal. He's been a Jedi for like 16 years? How old's Torben? 16, 17? And he just decides, nah, you know what? I had enough of this. I just want to go home. I'm tired of this.
Yeah, we definitely haven't seen whiny Padawans or Padawans make irrational decisions or bad decisions. Have not seen that before. And yeah, it's shown as a flaw. Again, do you want them all to be just the stereotypical archetype of what a Jedi is supposed to be? That they're all supposed to just be exactly how the Jedi Code says they're supposed to be? Is that what you want? in the story? Are they just supposed to have no flaws? Are they supposed to what do you want?
Tired of this mission. Very, very good writing. She's very right that she can't just tell him that. I can see a viewer saying, well, just tell him that. But she explicitly says, I have to teach him. He has to learn this. If I just tell it to him, it's not going to sink in at all. It will be my idea. It will be my thing that I'm telling him. So he has to be taught the challenging circumstances of being a Jedi. Episode 7 gives us totally different perspectives of what happened.
Yeah, and again, we see that like in with Yoda and Luke. Yoda just doesn't give him all the answers right away. He's like, you know, you're gonna carry rocks around. You're gonna carry me around on your back. We're gonna run through the forest. You know, it's that age-old tradition of a master and an apprentice. You know, wax on, wax off. We're going to teach you something rather than just show it to you.
Happened on Brendock compared to what we saw in episode 3 when May tells OSHA, I'll kill you. Did that actually happen, or is that OSHA misremembering that night? We talked about this a lot in the writer's room. There was a healthy discussion about it. Do you utilize this kind of language as a child? And I said, I think so, yeah. I remember when I was little, I have 2 sisters. I have a younger brother. We said insane things to each other. Just absolutely wild, crazy things. I don't think it got to that level of violence, of course. I hope not. But I don't think May means that at all. She doesn't mean she's actually going to kill her sister. She doesn't mean she's actually going to kill her sister, yet she locks her in and then sets fire to the whole place. And we also see her set up earlier as like tormenting the butterfly. Really good writing. But we did...
Yeah, I don't know. I have kids. I've been around kids a lot in my life. I have siblings. They can say some off-the-wall shit sometimes that they don't understand what they're saying. They can say, yeah, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to shoot you with a gun, and they don't understand what they're saying. So that makes sense to me. And then what we saw was her burning this book, and then it gets out of control, and she throws it on the ground so she doesn't get burned, and then she's very scared and goes to get her mother very quickly. It was obvious that it was not her intent to start that fire or to kill her sister.
Talk about the fact that possibly OSHA is misremembering it because she felt so threatened in that moment. So I'd leave it up to the viewer. We did discuss both of them. Will we learn whether Kimir is truly a Sith or not in the season finale? What I will say is you don't hear it from his mouth, but there are a couple small things that happen that intimate the answer to the question. Well, I mean, he literally said to you, I'm a Sith. But will we learn if Kimir has any...
I think that... Yeah, I mean, like this next answer here, it's kind of insinuating that he may be like the start of the Knights of Ren, maybe. My theory is that maybe he was a trained assassin that stopped working with like Tenebris or Plagueis or something like that, or maybe he was a Sith apprentice to one of them, and like Darth Maul was replaced. So, like, maybe he had been a Sith at some point and no longer is. I don't think that he is currently a Sith. But we'll see what happens there.
Connection to the Knights of Ren. There's a theory of it.
But the Knights of Ren connection seems very strong. Like, there's just no other reason for them to play Kylo Ren's theme song twice in the show so far.
Been working on all season. Theory you've been working on? I'm pretty sure like everybody and their mama has been saying that after they heard Kylo Ren's theme. It's a really good theory. What an interesting theory. What an amazing... That's wow, wow, wow. Yeah, well, I mean, you put the music there. What aspect of the series that will prove important in the finale do you think people haven't focused on enough up to this point? Ah, yes, it is our fault as the viewer to not focus on something enough because we're too distracted with lore breaking and the other bullshit that was put in this convoluted written show. That's a good
there's nothing really that's been lore breaking. There's nothing that's really been convoluted. It all lines up. It all makes sense. It all connects. You just have to be either dumb or not understand the Star Wars theory, or or you don't want to. That's the only way.
Question. I haven't been following the coverage of the show enough to really... Yes, I'm sure you haven't. I did hear that there was a bit of a dust-up in terms of the girls stepping on Anakin's creation storyline. Oh, just a bit, which I had mixed feelings about. It's probably for another deep dive to kind of talk about that. I would say that you might be missing the forest for the trees in starting an argument about that, instead of seeing that this is a power that could have existed in the world way before Anakin, and that power was being pursued by someone. So it's not an issue of paying attention to, but I did hear about that, and I just think people aren't taking into account the era that we're in. So things could happen before they were supposed to actually happen. You mean like the thousand...
No, you fucking dumbass. It's been insinuated, it's actually happened in lore that life was created around this time period, or that experiments with creating life happened around this time period, and now we're being shown that. So what's the problem? It's totally different, because Anakin was himself a vergence of the Force. He was created out of the will of the Force. He is still utterly unique, utterly special. It's already been established that stuff similar to what has happened with OSHA and May was happening during this time period, and now we're being shown that. Like, they get mad that they're not using like Legends content, but here they are obviously using Legends content and bringing it into canon. But we're just going to complain about it. So I don't...
1,000 years of peace that was pre-established that you destroyed? You mean like Ki-Adi-Mundi that wasn't supposed to be...
Again, there was Sith during that 1,000 years of peace that were doing stuff. And it's very clear that everyone involved here is either going to die, or it's all going to be swept under the rug. Like, it's not breaking anything. Like we're just telling the same kind of stories that were told in the Legends content around this time period. Like, what was in the Legends content? There's just no... In the High Republic content, there's just no... there's nothing bad going on. It's just stories about families and Jedi living happy lives and going about their jobs. That's it.
Born yet, or even in the show, or to know that Jedi were dying in this 1,000 years of peace that you interjected and destroyed. You mean like the vergence in the Force that was a once in a lifetime kind of...
Yeah, you mean like the vergence one? Yep. Nothing has stopped that from being a once in a lifetime thing. Nothing has stopped that. There's still other vergences. They've explained that the girls are not the vergence.
Thing that was written in the prophecy and hadn't shown up for thousands of years for the Jedi, that you interjected 87 years before the Phantom Menace, when that was supposed to be the first iteration of that ever happening. Please?
Nope. This is not an iteration of what happened with Anakin. The Force had nothing to do with the creation of May and OSHA. This was an experiment that Force users did. And this has happened in Legends content. And essence transfer, something that Palpatine did. Probably learned it from this Genesis.
Please do your Star Wars research before getting $180 million to write something and then saying, we're not focusing on the right things. I think it is you that's not focusing on the right things, Leslye. But you got your money. Oh, there's more. If there's...
It's just so disingenuous and so misinformed. And like, I don't know if it's like on purpose. I don't know if he's like blinded by hate. I don't know what's going on here. Like, this is just Legends content being told.
If there's anything we know about the fifth in Sith in sequels or prequels, one of the things we do know about them is their quest for these abilities, like we're seeing Anastasia being able to execute with the twins. It just seemed to me, the ability to create life, which is something that Plagueis and Palpatine tried so hard on, the most powerful Sith in existence ever, and they still were not fully successful at all. But these witches,
we don't really know that. We don't know that.
Let's just write, someone could do it 87 years before. Let's just put that in there. Why not? Because these are your witches, Leslye. Sounds good to me. It just seemed to me any power like that does not belong to one faction. It doesn't belong to anyone because no one was able to actually successfully do it. But now
we don't know that.
Belongs to one faction, which is the witches that you created. Does anybody see this? Please comment below if you actually are seeing this and like understanding, comprehending what she's just... Bro, it is not something that Anastasia was born with either. It's a power that belongs to the Force. and that it's up to the practitioner to be able to understand and figure out and pull apart how do you harness that particular power, which Anastasia did, which your character that you wrote and interjected did when nobody else could have. When George Lucas's characters couldn't do it, yours did. I understand what people were complaining about. I thought it...
Like, it's never said that it couldn't happen. Like, it literally says that, or Palpatine literally says that Plagueis was, like, able to create life itself. Yeah, it happened. And where do you think Plagueis learned it from? Probably Tenebris. It probably has something to do with this. This is canon that this can happen. It's just a matter of figuring out how to do it.
It was a bit of a dust up, but now we're complaining. So clearly you are keeping tabs. You probably got alt accounts, or were maybe confused by, but I think they're sort of paying attention to the wrong aspect. Okay, they're not seeing the long game of the lineage of the Sith pursuing any sort of evidence of this type of power in the galaxy, and then tunnel visioning forward toward it and improving upon it. Again, if the girls are a test run, being able to improve on what that power is and being able to perfect it, that would be something, if I were a Sith, I would be interested in. Yes, the problem is that there was no test run, Leslye. There was never a iteration that was created where a Sith or any Force user of any kind was able to manipulate the Force and the midichlorians to create life. Plagueis never did it. That's just a tale that Palpatine told Anakin.
Right, we have no confirmation that he did or didn't do it. It was a tale that Plagueis told, or that Palpatine told. Like, we don't know. We don't know. That we just can't definitively say. We're being told now. Like, the canon for this is being made up as we go. That's what's happening now. We know that there is, like, tales of this happening. We know that that Tenebris was experimenting with this type of stuff in Legends. And now it's being canonized, okay? Jesus.
To coerce him into the dark side, to seduce him into the dark side, as you like to sexually say. Now,
that doesn't mean it was a lie.
You've created one faction that is able to do this. Whether it's a guinea pig, a test, or whatnot, they have been able to do what no other has been able to do. Palpatine should have been talking about the witches to Anakin because they successfully did the first iteration of this. They created a Force-sensitive child, 2 of them, and Plagueis was never able...
Yeah, and Anakin probably should have talked about Ahsoka Tano at some point in the movies, but he never does. Because George Lucas made it up afterwards. Because that's what happens when you have a story that's unfolding constantly. Jesus.
To. He tried, but he was never able to. So, you know what? We should redo that whole opera scene in Revenge of the Sith, where Palpatine sits there and says, "Did you ever hear of the tragedy of the fucking witches of the Coven of this random-ass planet 87 years ago?" No, I thought not. Not a story George would...
Yeah, like, why... Again, to me, it's just obvious that this power would not be unique to Plagueis. Like, obviously, it's something that can happen. Plagueis obviously would not have been the first one to ever do it or to figure it out. He would have learned it from somewhere. Tenebris would have learned it from somewhere. We are learning more about the Star Wars universe as these stories are being told. Just like we learned more about the Star Wars universe as more stories were told from George Lucas.
To tell you, how do you not understand like the level of back and forth?
Yeah, so he's not going to tell like the whole, like that wasn't the point. It was just to show that Plagueis, his own master, was a very powerful being and was able to manipulate life and save people that he loved from death. And he knew that this would be very enticing for Anakin. Why would he go through and tell the entire backstory of all the experiments and where they learned it from and who did it first and all that? That wasn't the point of that conversation.
that you're doing here and contradicting yourself so much. This one's for me. I've been waiting many years for Darth Plagueis to show up. Do you know how the whole story of the galaxy far, far away from the Acolyte to him training Palpatine connects? Yes, I do. Well, she does know it. If I can, just like she knows Star Wars and everything else, she's interjecting. If I do get to continue the story, I know, which they will make a season 2. It'll probably come out in 2027. I know how I would like that to play out, and I would say I think it's pretty complicated and messy. Cool. Mikey Walsh is a staff writer at Nerdist who always thinks Darth Plagueis is showing up any second. You can follow him on Twitter and Blue Sky, and also anywhere someone is ranking the Targaryen kings. All right, well, great. Well, I feel like I said enough in this interview. That was just a lot of contradiction. We're going to make a lot of reels and a lot of clips out of it and have some fun with it. Let me know what you guys think, man. There's a lot to be said at any point in this long video, but I sat through this. I gave my take, and by all means, give yours too. Just be respectful, be kind to everybody, but give your points and give them good. Have a great rest of your day. TheorySabers.com. We'll catch you.
All right, so I appreciate that he does seem to try to keep things positive, that he's not very insulting, like he was back in the day when he caught flack for using that AI version of Mark Hamill in his show. And then came out and was like gatekeeping Star Wars and basically saying that it wasn't for girls, and like all these e-gamer girls were like cosplaying as fans, and that it wasn't popular to be a Star Wars fan back in the day. I have complicated feelings about Star Wars theory. I want to believe the best about him, and I don't think he is necessarily a part of the toxic community. I don't think he's a toxic person, but I do think that a lot of toxic people are feeding off of his content right now and using a lot of the things that he says to justify their toxicity. That being said, I feel like I don't know why this is fun anymore for him. I don't know why this would be fun for people who think this way. Like, obviously you are going in wanting to hate it. You're going in looking for things to hate. I mean, I guess that's fun. I mean, there's like snark Reddit pages for all kinds of things where people love just shitting on things and hating things. That's not fun for me. I like to enjoy things. And if I stop enjoying it because there are so many contradictions and they're breaking the lore and they're not respecting the material and they're obviously never going to listen to me or pander to what I want, I'm probably going to move on at some point. And so I hope you can see like how, I don't know if it's like dishonesty, if it's audience capture that he is playing into this. I don't know if like he went from explaining Star Wars lore and then trying to analyze it and is just really bad at it. I don't know if like Disney buying Star Wars was just that much of a brain breaking thing for him or for Star Wars fans in general. Again, like I said, this has not been like new to Star Wars, Disney Star Wars. There have been toxic fans since the beginning. Let me know what you think about Disney Star Wars in general. For the most part, like I said, I'm an enjoyer. I'm not a critic. I have my critiques of every new show that's come out, but I've also enjoyed every single new show that's come out, despite my critiques of it. I love being able to just to exist in and experience any new Star Wars story. I loved Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor. As games, they were okay. You know, they were derivative, the gameplay was derivative, but it was a good vehicle for a very good Star Wars story, and I really enjoyed experiencing that. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of these criticisms, just like, they don't make sense to me. They feel very dishonest. They feel very that like just I come from a place of like not really understanding the lore while accusing other people of not understanding the lore. It's just like very Dunning-Kruger. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten that frustrated doing a reaction to anything in a long time. That's why I try to avoid this kind of stuff, because unlike these guys, like, I avoid stuff that I don't enjoy, and I don't enjoy this kind of criticism or critique that just is just like nitpicking every little thing. Yeah. So tell me what you think of the new Star Wars, Disney Star Wars. What do you think of the Acolyte? I have liked it so far. It's been probably my second favorite under Andor. It may end up being my favorite so far. We will see. But that was Star Wars Theory. Check out his content. He does have a lot of content that I like that he used to make a long time ago. Not as much of a fan anymore these days. But again, as he said as well, try to keep it respectful. There's no reason to be toxic or spread hate. But, we can have lively conversations for sure. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, engage with the content. I appreciate you for watching and reaching the very end. I will see you next time.